In 535 AD, scientific evidence suggests that a massive volcano erupted in the tropics, throwing up so much ash that it turned summer to winter. Crops failed for years while drought and famine gripped the land. Millions died. For the next 18 months, the sun gave forth its light without brightness. Here's what life was really like during humanity's most catastrophic volcanic winter. So yeah, if these stories work for you, subscribe. And I'm curious, what time is it where you are? Comment below. Last week, someone from Canada said they listened during lunch breaks. Not judging, just wasn't expecting that. Okay, tonight it's the year without a summer. But before we go anywhere, get cozy, like actually cozy. Pillows good? Blanket situation handled? Perfect. Trust me on this one. The cold seeps through your woolen blanket as dawn approaches, but it's not the chill that wakes you, it's the roosters. They're crowing, but something's off. It's too early, surely. The roosters are confused, and no wonder. You're lying on a straw pallet in a small timber home in eastern Britannia, 536 AD. It's been decades since the Romans left these shores, and your village is a mixture of native Britons and Saxon settlers. Your father, a Romano-British farmer, married your Saxon mother 15 years ago, bringing together two worlds in one household. Not that anyone cares about old divisions this morning. There are more pressing concerns. As you sit up, the straw pallet crackles beneath you. Your younger siblings are still curled up like dormice, sharing body heat under the single woolen blanket your mother wove last winter. The morning feels wrong. The light filtering through the small window opening is dim, muted. And it's spring, late March. It should be getting lighter earlier, not darker. Father's already outside, your mother says, stoking the small fire in the central hearth. The smoke curls upward, finding its way out through the hole in the thatched roof. Something strange in the sky. You pull on a linen undershirt, then your wool tunic, the fabric rough against your skin. Not like your soft, modern bedclothes. The woolen socks and leather shoes are next. No one walks barefoot in a world full of mud, animal waste and sharp debris, even indoors. Outside, the air feels thick, peculiar. Your father stands in the middle of your small farm plot, looking upward. Several neighbours have gathered too, all staring at the sky with expressions ranging from confusion to outright fear. It's not burning right, old Wulfric says, gesturing to his torch. Though it's supposedly morning, he's still carrying it. Look how weak the flame is. You glance up. The sun is there, visible through a strange haze, but it's wrong, diminished, like a dull copper coin rather than the bright gold it should be. My grandmother spoke of a time when the sun dimmed, says Ephra, the oldest woman in the village. Her face is a map of wrinkles, her fingers gnarled from decades of work. Before even my mother was born, it brought a terrible cold. Hunger followed. Nonsense, father says, but his voice lacks conviction. It's just a passing storm. But it isn't a storm. There are no clouds, no promise of rain, just that strange, persistent haze. And as the day wears on, it doesn't lift. By midday, when the sun should be at its highest, the world remains in an eerie half-light. Your shadow on the ground is faint, barely there. Like twilight at noon, your mother whispers, making the sign of the cross. Though she converted to Christianity when she married your father, she still sometimes mutters the old Saxon charms when she thinks no one is listening. Today, she's doing both. Wait, what? No, that's not right. The cross didn't become common in Anglo-Saxon England until later. She's making a different protective gesture, an older one, tracing Tu's symbol for protection against dark forces. The village headman calls for a meeting as the day's strange half-light begins to fade into genuine darkness. Everyone gathers in the mead hall, the largest building in your small settlement. The chickens laid half as many eggs today, reports the reeve, who keeps track of the village's resources. And have you seen the spring plantings? The shoots are yellowing already. It's that ash in the air, says Dunstan, who was a legionary's son before the Romans left. My father saw something like this near the great mountain in Sicilia, fire and rock from the earth itself. No mountain here, someone counters. Doesn't have to be. The winds carry things. Ash, smoke. Dunstan trails off, uncomfortable, as everyone stares at him. It's a sign, declares Father Cuthbert, the village priest, his voice cutting through the murmurs. Divine judgment, we've strayed from God's path. Or the gods are fighting, mutters old Hilda, who never gave up the old ways. Thor strikes his hammer against the sky, and the sparks blind the sun. You notice how people subtly shift, Christians moving closer to Father Cuthbert, those still holding to the old ways drifting toward Hilda and her whispered charms. Enough. The headman raises his hands. Signs or gods or whatever it may be, we need to be practical. If the planting is affected, our stores won't last. And there it is, the fear that underlies everything else. Your village, like every other across Britannia and beyond, lives on a knife's edge when it comes to food. Good harvests mean survival. Poor harvests mean hunger, or worse. Your father speaks up. We should check the stored grain, take inventory. If we need to ration, better to start now than wait. The grain won't sprout right under this sky, says Aelfric, the best farmer among you. His face is grim. I tried some today in different spots. It's like they know something's wrong. The headman nods. We take stock tomorrow. Every household count what you have. We'll need to plan. Back home, your family gathers close to the hearth fire. The flames seem to struggle more than usual, as if the strange air is choking them too. What if the sun just stays like this? Your younger brother asks, his eyes wide with a child's capacity for both fear and wonder. It won't, your father says firmly, but you catch him exchanging a worried glance with your mother. That night, sleep is hard to find. The roosters, confused by the dim day, crow at odd hours. The dogs in the village whine and bark at nothing. And somewhere in the distance, wolves howl more boldly than they have in years, as if they sense a change coming. Morning brings no relief. The sun rises as a pale, muted presence in the eastern sky. The air feels colder than it should for late March. Your father's breath steams in the chill as he helps you check the grains and beans in the storage pit beneath your home's floor. We have enough for 2 months, maybe 3 if we're careful, he says quietly, so your siblings won't hear. After that, he doesn't finish. He doesn't need to. In the days that follow, a new routine emerges. The strange half-light continues. The spring planting struggles. Young shoots emerge from the soil, then yellow and wither. The wild greens that usually provide the first fresh food after winter are stunted, bitter. Your father and the other men extend their hunting trips, venturing deeper into the forests than usual. They return with less game than expected. The animals seem to be hiding, confused by the altered rhythms of day and night. One evening, a week into the strange darkness, a messenger arrives from the larger settlement to the east. He's haggard, his horse foam-flecked from hard riding. It's everywhere, he tells the gathered villagers, all across Britannia. Into Gaul too, traders say. The sun is dimmed from Rome to Constantinople. Father Cuthbert raises his voice. And what do they say it is? This darkness. The messenger shrugs. Some say God's wrath. Others blame evil magic. A bishop to the south claims it's the breath of a dragon that lives within the earth. He pauses. The wise ones say it doesn't matter what causes it. What matters is surviving it. That night, your mother sits by the fire long after everyone else has gone to sleep. You watch through half-closed eyes as she takes inventory of everything in your small home. She counts the dried beans, the stored grain, the salted meat. Her fingers linger on the small clay pot that holds the precious salt itself, worth its weight in silver and essential for preserving food. Not enough, you hear her whisper. Not nearly enough. The next day brings the first real council of war. That's how your father describes it, though there's no enemy to fight, just the dimmed sun and what it means for the crops. The headman stands in the centre of the gathering. We need to think differently, he announces. The usual plantings are failing. We need to try other crops, different methods. My grandmother, old Afri begins, and there are a few groans because everyone knows how her stories start. My grandmother knew which wild plants could feed us when the crops failed, which roots, which barks even. This time, no one interrupts her as she speaks. No one jokes about old women's tales. Everyone listens. Acorns can be ground for flour if you leach the bitterness out first, she says. Certain pine bark too. Nettles are coming up now. They make good soup. Dandelion roots can be roasted. Young ferns are nearly ready for picking. She names plant after plant, and someone is assigned to take notes using precious charcoal on a scrap of smoothed birch bark. The Romans knew hunger too, adds Dunstan. My grandfather said they made a porridge from whatever they could find, called it hunger soup, better than starving. Plans are made. Hunting parties are organised, not just for game, but to check snares for rabbits and other small animals. Others will gather the wild plants Ifri described. Every household is assigned tasks. That evening, your mother teaches you and your siblings about the plants you'll be gathering the next day. Look, she says, sketching in the dirt floor with a stick. Dandelions, you know, but also look for these. She draws the shapes of leaves, and these are the bad ones. They may look similar, but they'll make you sick, or worse. How do you know all this? Your younger sister asks. Your mother's smile is grim. There was a bad year when I was younger than you. Not like this, but bad enough. My mother taught me. Now I'm teaching you. Outside, the strange half-light is fading into true darkness. Through the small window opening, you can see neighbours moving about with torches, their faces tight with worry. Your father returns from the headman's longer meeting, his expression sombre. They're sending messengers to the old villa to the north, he tells your mother quietly. The one where the rich merchant lives. They say he has grain stores. Will he share? Your mother asks. Your father's laugh is without humour. No, but he might sell, at a price. We have nothing to sell, your mother says. Some do. The headman has that silver arm ring. A few others have things of value. And those who don't? Your father doesn't answer immediately. The headman says we're one village. We'll share what we can get. You pretend to sleep, but you listen as they talk into the night, making plans, calculating how long supplies might last. The adults think they're protecting you by hiding their fears, but you understand more than they realise. As real darkness falls completely, you finally drift towards sleep, wondering what tomorrow will bring under the weakened sun. Outside, a wolf howls closer to the village than you've ever heard before. The dogs answer with nervous barking. Even the animals know something is deeply wrong. Your last thought before sleep takes you is about the sun. Will it ever shine brightly again? Or is this half-light the new normal? And if it is, how long can anyone survive in a world where crops won't grow? In the growing darkness, no one has any answers, only questions and the gnawing fear of hunger to come. When dawn comes, it's hardly worthy of the name. 2 months have passed since the darkness fell. It's now early summer, though you'd never know it. The dim sun struggles to warm the earth, and your breath still forms small clouds in the morning air. You roll off your straw pallet, muscles aching from yesterday's foraging trip. The small pile of wild greens and roots you gathered sits in the corner, waiting to be sorted. Your stomach growls, but breakfast will be meagre, a thin gruel made from the last of the stored grain, stretched with ground acorns that your mother processed to remove their bitterness. Get up, your mother says, nudging your siblings. We need to check the snares before the wolves do. Your father left before first light with 3 other men from the village. They're hunting deer in the deep forest, though game has become scarce and strange in behaviour. Animals seem confused by the eternal twilight, wandering at odd hours, following disrupted patterns that make them harder to track. Outside, the village looks different than it did in spring. Gardens that should be lush with growing vegetables instead hold experimental plots. Following old Ifray's advice, people are trying to grow anything that might survive in the dim light. Root vegetables mostly, turnips and early carrots, plants that put their energy underground rather than in sun-seeking leaves. We're headed to the North Woods, your mother tells you, handing over a small sack made from an old scrap of linen. Take your sister to the stream beds. Look for watercress and young cattails. Remember how I showed you? You nod. Food gathering has become everyone's daily work. Even children as young as 5 have learned to identify edible plants. At the edge of the village, you pass the headman's home where a group of men and women are gathered in serious conversation. 3 more villages sending word, you overhear. Same story everywhere. Nothing's growing right. The big monastery to the south has opened its storehouses, but even they don't have enough to feed everyone who comes begging. The merchant from the villa sent his answer, another voice adds. He'll trade grain, but the price... The voice drops too low to hear the rest. You hurry your sister along. Adults don't like children listening to such grim talk, but everyone knows the situation worsens with each passing day of dimmed sunlight. At the stream, you find other families already harvesting the precious watercress. The plants grow even in the weakened light, their small white flowers dotting the green leaves that float on the water's surface. "Leave some for tomorrow," calls out Edith, a woman from the far end of the village. There's an edge to her voice that wasn't there before the darkness came. "We're just taking our share," you reply, keeping your tone respectful. Tensions have been rising as supplies dwindle. Your sister tugs your sleeve. "Look," she whispers, pointing downstream. A deer, thin-flanked but still a substantial source of meat, drinks nervously from the stream. It's unusually close to the village, and in broad daylight or what passes for daylight now. The permanent dusk has disrupted the normal patterns of wildlife. Slowly you reach for the small hunting knife at your belt. You're not skilled enough to take down a deer alone, but with it this close. The deer's head jerks up. It looks directly at you with dark, liquid eyes, then bounds away into the forest. It knew, your sister says with a child's certainty. It looked right at us. "Animals are hungry too," you tell her, turning back to the watercress. "Come on, help me gather these." You work methodically, moving from the watercress to the cattails growing along the muddy bank. The young shoots can be eaten raw, and the roots rhizomes, your mother called them, can be pounded into flour once cleaned and dried. As you harvest, an older boy from the village approaches, his own collection bag already bulging. "Found a patch of ramsons up the hill," he tells you, referring to wild garlic. "Not many, but enough to flavour tonight's stew." He looks around carefully before adding in a lower voice, "My father and the others are setting bigger snares, for deer, not just rabbits." You understand what he's not saying. The headman has declared that larger game must be brought back to the village for communal sharing. Private snares for deer would be against his orders, but people are growing desperate. "We didn't see anything," you reply, and he nods gratefully. By midday, though it's hard to tell precisely when that is anymore, your bag contains a decent harvest: watercress, cattail shoots, a handful of tiny wild strawberries found in a surprisingly sunny patch, and even some dandelion roots that will be bitter but filling when roasted. As you head back to the village, you pass old Ephri's hut. The ancient woman sits outside, surrounded by younger women and a few attentive men, all listening intently. Acorn bread will keep you alive, but it binds the bowels something fierce, she's saying. Mix in some meadowsweet if you can find it, or drink pine needle tea, the young needles, mind you, not the old ones. She catches sight of you and waves you over. "Show me what you've gathered, child." You open your bag and display your morning's work. Good, good, she nods, her gnarled fingers sorting through the plants. She stops at a particular root. Not this one. Looks like cattail root, but see this reddish tinge? Drop it. Not worth the bellyache. You discard the suspect root as one of the women asks, "What about mushrooms? There are some growing in the cow pasture." Ephri's face turns stern. "Leave them be unless you're certain. The tricky ones can look like the good ones. My cousin's boy died from mushroom sickness in the Hunger Year when I was a girl. Terrible way to go." Her audience nods solemnly. In these dark days, her knowledge, once dismissed as old women's chatter, has become precious. "What about the forest mushrooms?" someone else asks. "The big orange ones on the oak trees?" "Chicken of the woods, we called them," Ephri nods. "Good eating and safe, but watch for the false ones. If it glows at dusk, well, now any time in this cursed half-light leave it be." You listen for a while longer before continuing home. Ephra's lessons have become as regular as Father Cuthbert's prayers, and many villagers attend both, faithfully hedging their bets between old knowledge and Christian faith. Back at your home, your mother sorts through your gatherings with approval. "Good work. The watercress will go in tonight's pottage. We'll dry the rest for later." Later has become an ominous word. Later, when there might be even less food. Later, when the darkness might still grip the world. Your father returns in the afternoon with two other hunters. Between them, they carry a single fawn, already skinned and gutted. Not the bounty they'd hoped for, but better than returning empty-handed. "Small hunting party from the North Settlement says it's the same everywhere," he tells your mother quietly, as he hands over his portion of meatless than you would have received in normal times. The darkness stretches at least 5 days' journey in all directions. Maybe across the whole world. Your mother crosses herself, a gesture she's making more frequently these days. "Did they say anything else? Any word of it lifting?" He shakes his head. "Nothing. But there's talk of a great meeting, all the villages sending representatives to the old Roman town. The bishop is calling for it. Will you go?" Your father looks uncertain. The headman hasn't decided who to send. It's a 3-day journey. Dangerous now, with wolves coming closer to the roads and desperate people in the forests. That evening, the entire village gathers in the central clearing. The communal cooking fire burns lower than usual. Firewood, like everything else, is being carefully rationed. The headman has ordered the building of a large outdoor oven where each family can bring their food to be cooked together, saving precious fuel. The evening meal is a stew made from the day's hunting and gathering. The deer meat has been cut into tiny pieces, more flavouring than substance, swimming in a broth with wild greens, a few precious grain kernels and foraged roots. Everyone receives the same portion, ladled into wooden bowls by the headman's wife herself to ensure fairness. You sit with your family, savouring each mouthful slowly. Around you, conversation is muted but persistent. People cling to normal social interaction, even as the world around them grows increasingly abnormal. "My cousin's boy took sick," one woman tells another. "Fever and coughing. The wise woman says it's from the bad air." "It's the dampness," her friend replies. Without proper sun to dry things out, everything stays wet. Bad for the lungs. Father Cuthbert says it's a test of faith, adds a third woman. Those who remain true to God will be delivered from this tribulation. Near the fire, a group of men are discussing more practical matters. If we split the fishing nets, make smaller ones, more people can try the river at once, suggests Oswald, who learned net making from his father. Fish aren't biting like they should, counters another man. It's like they're hiding too. We need to try the deeper pools. That's where they'll go when they're frightened. After the meal, Father Cuthbert stands to offer prayers. Some bow their heads immediately, others look away, their faith tested by the continuing darkness. The Lord God created light and separated it from darkness, the priest intones. We must trust that he will bring back the light in his time. From the edge of the gathering, old Afri makes a soft noise that might be disagreement. The ancient ways she follows have different explanations for the darkened sun, different rituals to call back the light. As the priest continues, you notice how the village has subtly divided, those clustered near Father Cuthbert drawing comfort from Christian promises, those hovering closer to Ephra, and the handful of other oldsters who keep to the pagan ways, and a growing middle group who simply look exhausted, faith of any kind worn thin by hunger and worry. After prayers, the headman rises. We've had word from 3 more villages, he announces. The darkness covers all of Britannia and beyond, but we also have news that gives hope. The crowd stirs, desperately eager for any positive word. Traders who came to the coast settlement say that far to the south, in the lands around Rome, the sun is gradually strengthening. The darkness is lifting, though slowly. Murmurs spread through the gathering. If true, this is the first real hope since the skies first dimmed. How long? Someone calls out. How long before it reaches us? The headman spreads his hands. That they couldn't say, but if the darkness is receding in the south, it must eventually recede here as well. It's thin comfort, but comfort nonetheless. You see shoulders straighten slightly, expressions lighten just a fraction. For now, the headman continues, we have matters to discuss. First, the grain stores. He nods to the reeve, who stands with his tally sticks. At current rations, we have enough for 3 more weeks, the reeve reports. 4 if we reduce portions again. Grim looks are exchanged. 3 weeks is not long enough. Second, the headman presses on, the bishop's meeting. We must decide who goes. Debate follows. Some argue that no one can be spared. Others insist they need to know what wider plans are being made. In the end, it's decided that 2 will go. Dunstan, who knows the old Roman roads, and Father Cuthbert, who can speak with the bishop as one churchman to another. They leave tomorrow, the headman concludes. Now about the fishing nets. As the meeting continues, you and your siblings grow drowsy. Your mother eventually leads you back to your home. The night has grown genuinely dark now, the strange twilight replaced by true darkness that feels almost normal by comparison. Inside, your father has built up the small hearth fire using just enough precious wood to take the damp chill from the air. Your mother unrolls the pallets, and soon your younger siblings are asleep, exhaustion overcoming hunger and worry. You lie awake longer, listening to your parents talk in hushed voices. If it's true about the south, your mother says, then there's hope. Maybe. Your father sounds less convinced. But even if the light returns tomorrow, the crops are already damaged. We still face a hungry year. We've survived hungry years before. Not like this. Never like this. There's silence for a moment, then your mother asks, do you think we should go? Join those heading south? Too dangerous, your father replies immediately. The roads aren't safe, and what would we find? Every village facing the same struggles. At least here we have our home, our neighbours. We know the land, what it can provide. More silence follows, and you drift towards sleep. your dreams filled with bright sunshine and fields full of ripening grain. The next morning, if the dull lightening of the perpetual dusk can be called, morning brings a surprising excitement to the village. Father Cuthbert and Dunstan prepare for their journey to the bishop's gathering, packing small bundles of provisions. More interesting to you and the other children is the arrival of a Travelera, rare event in these dangerous times. The man is gaunt but strong-looking, with the weathered face of someone used to the roads. He brings news and, more precious still, seeds. "Beans," he tells the gathered villagers, holding up a small leather pouch. "From the old monastery garden near the coast. The brothers there say these grow well even in the darkness. They don't need as much sun as grain." The seeds are counted carefully, distributed among the village's most skilled gardeners. Your mother receives 7 beans, which she wraps in a scrap of clean linen like their precious gems. Plant them in the warmest spot, the traveller advises, against a south-facing wall if you have one. They grow quickly, climb high. He stays only long enough to trade his knowledge for a meal, then continues on his way, heading northwest with more seed pouches for other villagers. That afternoon, your mother takes you to help plant the beans. You find the warmest corner of your small garden where the wall of your home provides some shelter. The soil there is poor in normal times. You wouldn't bother planting in it, but you work in some precious composted material saved from kitchen scraps to give the beans a fighting chance. All 1 hand deep, your mother instructs, showing you how to press your finger into the soil to the right depth. Too shallow and they'll dry out, too deep and they'll rot before they sprout. Each bean goes into its hole with a whispered prayer, a mix of Christian invocation and older charms that your mother doesn't even seem aware she's blending together. You cover them carefully with soil, then water them with a few precious drops from the rain barrel. "Now we wait," your mother says, but her tone carries little conviction. So many crops have failed already under the darkened sky. As Father Cuthbert and Dunstan leave for the bishop's meeting, the village settles into a new rhythm of survival. Each day is a matter of careful calculation. How much food to eat? How much to save? How far to roam for foraging without exhausting your strength? How to maintain hope when the sun remains a dim, copper-coloured disk that gives little warmth or light. Your family adapts. Your father learns new ways to set snares that catch the confused rabbits that venture out at unusual hours. Your mother becomes skilled at stretching meagre ingredients into meals that at least dull the constant ache of hunger. You and your siblings develop sharp eyes for edible plants that might have gone unnoticed before. One evening, about a week after the beans were planted, your sister calls out excitedly from the garden corner, "Look, look, they're growing." And indeed, tiny green shoots have pushed up through the soil, reaching toward what little light filters through the hazy sky. It's a small miracle, but in these dark days, small miracles sustain you. That night, as you curl up on your straw pallet, the constant gnaw of hunger in your belly is slightly eased by something else. A fragile seedling of hope, as tenacious as the bean sprouts pushing up through the darkened earth. Autumn should bring harvest. It should bring feasting and full storerooms and preparations for winter made with confidence. Instead, as the dim summer gives way to an even dimmer fall, your village faces the cruel truth that there isn't enough food to go around. The beans your mother planted have grown a small miracle in the weakened light. They've climbed the side of your house, their pale stems reaching desperately upward, but the pods they produce are small and few. You help her harvest them carefully, saving some for immediate eating and some for next year's seed, if there is a next year. Morning brings a heavy mist that clings to the ground, refusing to burn off under the dulled sun. The air smells of smoke and rot, and the peculiar metallic tang that has become normal since the darkness fell. "We're going to the monastery today," your father announces at breakfast. A thin porridge made from the last of your stored grain mixed with ground acorns. The headman wants every family to send someone. Father Cuthbert returned last night with news. What news, you ask? Scraping your wooden bowl to get every last morsel. That's what we'll find out, he replies, his face giving nothing away. You're chosen to go with him. As one of the older children, you're useful but not essential for the day's foraging. Your mother and siblings will continue the endless search for edible plants and check the snares while you're gone. The monastery lies half a day's walk to the east. In normal times, you'd rarely have cause to go there. The monks keep mostly to themselves, tending their gardens and copying their manuscripts. But they also store grain and preserve knowledge, both increasingly precious commodities. As you join the gathering near the headman's house, you're struck by how much everyone has changed since summer. Faces are leaner, clothes hang more loosely, and eyes hold a wariness that wasn't there before. About 20 villagers have assembled for the journey, including the headman himself and Father Cuthbert, who looks exhausted from his recent travels. We'll follow the old Roman road, the headman announces. Stay together. There have been reports of desperate people in the forests. With that ominous warning, you set off. The Roman road is now little more than a straight path through the landscape, its stones long since carried off for building materials. Still, it offers the most direct route to the monastery. As you walk, Father Cuthbert shares snippets of what he learned at the bishop's gathering. The darkness stretches from Hibernia to Constantinople, he says. Some say beyond. Ships coming from the far north report that it's worse there. The sun barely rises at all. What's causing it? Someone asks. Did the bishop say? Father Cuthbert hesitates. Some believe it's divine punishment. Others speak of a great mountain that erupted far to the south, spewing ash into the heavens. Can prayers lift it? Asks a woman who has been particularly devout since the darkness began. We must always pray, the priest answers carefully, but the bishop also advised practical measures. That's why we're going to the monastery. They've preserved knowledge from the ancient world that might help us survive. The journey is mostly silent after that. Walking takes more energy than it once did, and no one has calories to waste on idle conversation. About midday, you crest a small hill and catch sight of the monastery in the distance. Its stone walls rise from the misty landscape like a memory of more solid times. Smoke rises from within. They still have firewood then. As you approach, you see that you're not the only visitors. Several groups from other villages are already gathered at the gates, which remain firmly closed. They're only letting people in a few at a time, explains a tired-looking man from a neighbouring settlement. Too many folks coming at once, looking for food and help. They're afraid of being overrun. You wait with the others, stamping your feet against the unusual cold. Autumn has barely begun, but already the air carries a winter bite. Eventually, a monk appears at a small side door and beckons to your group. The abbot will speak with you now, he says, his voice raspy as though from disuse. Follow me, please. Inside the monastery walls, you're struck by how orderly everything remains. The gardens, though showing the same stunted growth as plants everywhere, are well tended. The buildings are in good repair. The monks move with purpose, their thin faces suggesting they too eat less than before, but their manner retaining a discipline that your village has begun to lose. The abbot receives your group in a large room, warmed by a small fire. He's a tall, gaunt man with intelligent eyes that seem to assess each of you quickly. Father Cuthbert has told us of your village's plight, he begins without preamble. It is the same story we hear from every direction. The darkness has brought famine, and famine brings other troubles in its wake. Can you help us? The headman asks directly. We have children who are failing. The abbot's face shows genuine regret. We cannot give what we do not have in abundance. Our own stores grow low. He raises a hand to forestall protest. However, we can share knowledge that may help you through the coming winter, and we can take in a few of the most vulnerable, the very young, the very old, if your situation becomes truly desperate. A murmur runs through your group. The idea of separating families brings mixed feelings of relief and dread. "What knowledge can help us now?" asks an older man bitterly. "Can your books make the sun return?" "No," the abbot answers calmly, "but they can tell us how others survived when similar darkness fell in times past." This catches everyone's attention. "This has happened before?" your father asks. "Not in living memory, but yes, the chronicles speak of years when the sun dimmed and cold gripped the land out of season. Our oldest manuscripts, copied from texts that survived the fall of Rome, describe such events." He gestures, and a younger monk brings forward several bound volumes. These tell of methods for preserving food when salt is scarce, ways to find water when sources freeze, how to treat the illnesses that come with hunger and cold. For the next hour, the abbot and his monks share practical knowledge gleaned from ancient texts. Some of it you already know from village lore and Aefri's teachings, but much is new. They show you how to smoke meat in ways that require less wood, how to identify winter fungi that grow on trees even in the coldest months, how to make water safe to drink when it's drawn from questionable sources. One monk, Brother Thomas, takes particular interest in your group. He's younger than most, with a regional accent that marks him as coming from near your village. "I grew up not far from you," he confirms when your father asks. "My family had a small farm near the old oak grove." "Had?" your father inquires. Brother Thomas's face clouds. "They're gone now. The great sickness that swept through 10 years ago." He makes the sign of the cross. "The monastery took me in as an orphan." As he speaks with your father, you notice a storeroom door ajar behind him. Inside, you glimpse shelves that are far less full than they should be at this time of year. The monastery, for all its apparent order, is not as secure as it first appeared. The abbot concludes the meeting by presenting your headman with a small sack. "Dried peas," he explains. "They'll grow even in poor light if you plant them now before the worst cold comes. They won't yield much, but perhaps enough to make a difference." It's a generous gift, but as you leave the monastery, the reality of your situation settles back over your group like the omnipresent mist. The knowledge gained is valuable, but it doesn't fill empty bellies today. On the return journey, you pass a small group heading in the opposite direction. They're travelling with all their possessions clearly. They've abandoned their home. Children drag bundles too big for them. An old man is supported between two younger ones. Their faces are hollow with hunger and hopelessness. "Where are you bound?" your headman asks them. "South," replies a woman who seems to be their leader. "They say the darkness is lifting there, that crops grow again." "It's a long journey," Father Cuthbert warns. "The roads are dangerous." The woman looks at the children in her group, their thin faces and shadowed eyes. "Staying is more dangerous. We've buried 3 already. Better to die moving toward hope than sitting waiting for the end." No one argues with her logic. Your group continues homeward, each lost in thought about the choice these people have made. Is it better to stay where you know the land and have community, or risk everything on the promise of light returning elsewhere? When you return to your village, you find it changed again. A crowd has gathered outside one of the homes. The headman pushes through to find old Godwin, the charcoal maker, being laid out by his weeping daughter. "His heart," she explains through tears. "He went to sleep and didn't wake up. But everyone knows the truth. Old Godwin had been giving his food to his grandchildren for weeks. His heart gave out because his body had nothing left to sustain it. He's not the first in your village to die since the darkness came, but he's the first where hunger can be named as the clear cause. A line has been crossed. That night, your family eats a meal made from the knowledge gained at the monastery. Your mother has found a fallen log hosting the pale winter mushrooms the monks described, and she adds them to a thin stew. It's still not enough, but it's something new, something that might not have been in your pot without the day's journey. There's talk of splitting up, your father tells your mother quietly, after your siblings have fallen asleep. Some want to go south, like those folks we passed on the road. And you? She asks, her face illuminated by the dying embers of the fire. What do you think? He's silent for a long time. I think we still have roots here. Food we know how to find. People who will help us if it comes to the worst. Out there, he gestures vaguely toward the darkness beyond your walls. Out there, we're just more mouths to feed wherever we go. The children are getting weaker, your mother says, a tremor in her voice. Especially the little ones. I know. Your father stares into the fading fire. We'll give it until the first hard frost. If things haven't improved by then, we'll talk again about leaving. The next morning brings the first real crisis to your village's communal spirit. The grain stores, carefully rationed for weeks, have been broken into during the night. A significant amount is missing. The headman calls everyone together. His face is grim as he surveys the assembled villagers. Someone among us has stolen from all of us, he announces. This isn't just theft, it's a threat to everyone's survival. Faces turn suspicious. Neighbours who have known each other all their lives suddenly look at one another with doubt. Who was hungry enough, desperate enough to take food that meant life or death for the community? Whoever did this, come forward now. The headman continues. Return what you took, and we can discuss this reasonably. Silence stretches. No one steps forward. Then we have no choice but to search every home, he concludes. This provokes immediate protest. Even in these desperate times, a person's home is their last bastion of privacy and dignity. But the headman is adamant. This is about survival now, all of us, not just some. The searches begin, conducted by the headman and two trusted men. They move from house to house, looking through storage areas and hidden corners. When they reach your home, your father welcomes them with tight-lipped courtesy. They search quickly but thoroughly, finding nothing beyond the meagre supplies your family has legitimately gathered. I never thought it would be you, the headman tells your father, but we must check everyone. 3 homes later, they find the grainer part of it hidden in the thatch of Wulfric's roof. Wulfric, whose youngest child died in the spring before the darkness even came. Wulfric, who has 3 remaining children, all showing the swollen bellies and thinning hair of severe hunger. When confronted, Wulfric doesn't deny his theft. "My children are starving," he says simply. "What would any of you do?" The village must now face its hardest decision yet. In normal times, theft might be punished by public humiliation, restitution, or in extreme cases, banishment. But these are not normal times. Banishment now is almost certainly a death sentence. Yet letting the theft go unpunished undermines the very cooperation that has kept the village alive so far. The debate rages well into the evening. Some call for strict justice, others for mercy. In the end, the headman makes the decision. Wulfric will return what remains of the grain to the communal store, he pronounces, and to make amends, he and his eldest son will take on the most dangerous hunting duties for the next month seeking game in the deep forest where the wolves have grown bold. It's a clever compromise. Punishment that could potentially bring more food to the village rather than reducing its already strained resources. But the incident leaves a mark on everyone. Trust, once broken, is hard to restore. That night, more families set watches over their own small stores of food. The darkness outside has crept inside, into the ways you look at one another. The days grow shorter, though it's hard to tell with the sun already so dim. The cold deepens. Your family adds more straw to the walls of your home for insulation. The thatch of your roof is reinforced to keep out the increasing rain. Every bit of preparation feels like a statement of faith that you'll survive to see the darkness lift. A week after the theft incident, a trader arrives in the village, an increasingly rare sight. He's thin like everyone else, his pack lighter than it would have been in better times, but he still maintains the brisk manner of someone used to making deals. "I've come from the coast," he announces to the gathered villagers. "Travelled through 6 villages to get here." "What news?" the headman asks, the question everyone wants answered. "Or mixed," the trader replies honestly. The darkness continues, though some say it's less deep than it was. The southern kingdoms fare somewhat better, more food stored from better times. Here in the north, he shrugs, it's much the same everywhere, people getting by. Barely. "Do you have anything to trade?" someone calls out. "Salt? Iron?" The trader opens his pack. "Some salt, yes, needles, thread, a few medicines from the south." He hesitates. "I won't lie to you, the prices are high, everything's scarce." What follows is a subdued version of the trading that would normally bring excitement to the village. A few families have items valuable enough to exchange for the trader's goods: a finely woven blanket, a wood carving, a small silver pin passed down for generations. Most, like your family, can only watch. The trader stays the night, sharing news from beyond your isolated community in exchange for a place by the communal fire. His tales are sobering. Some villages have been abandoned entirely. In others, the old and sick have quietly slipped away, sacrificing themselves so the young might have a better chance. Wolves grow bolder, coming into settlements at night, and across the sea the Frankish kingdoms fare no better, with reports of people fleeing the northern territories in large numbers. Yet there are threads of hope in his stories too. Communities that have found clever ways to adapt. A fishing village that discovered a new technique for preserving their catch with smoke and certain herbs when salt ran out. A settlement near a Roman ruin that repurposed the ancient Hippocaust heating system to grow mushrooms in the warm darkness. People survive, the trader concludes. They always do. Some, anyway. The next morning, as he prepares to leave, he takes your father aside. "I didn't want to say this in front of everyone," he murmurs, "but I've seen the signs before. Your village is near the edge. The food's running out faster than you're finding new sources." He glances around to make sure no one is listening. The monastery to the west is taking in children. Just the children. Keeping them alive until things improve. Your father's face hardens. "We keep our families together." The trader shrugs. For now, perhaps, but winter's coming. Real winter, on top of this cursed darkness. He shoulders his pack. Just something to consider before it's too late. You pretend not to have overheard, but the trader's words haunt you as he disappears down the road, heading to the next village with his diminishing pack of goods and his burden of grim news. That evening, the first real snow falls far earlier than it should. The white flakes drift through the perpetual twilight, settling on a world already too cold and too dark. Everyone watches with dread. Winter arriving early means only one thing: even greater hardship ahead. In your home, huddled close to the small fire, your family takes stock of what you have and what you need to survive. The beans have been dried and stored. The knowledge from the monastery has helped you find new food sources. The community, despite its strains, still stands together. But the shadow of the trader's warning lies across it all. Winter is coming, and the sun remains hidden. The winter that comes isn't like any winter you've known. It's deeper, darker, colder. By midwinter, what would normally be midwinter, though time has become strangely distorted under the perpetual gloom, the snow lies knee-deep around the village. The temperature has fallen so low that water freezes in wooden buckets inside your home overnight. Your family now sleeps huddled together on pallets pushed to the centre of your small house. Body heat has become as precious a resource as food. The fire is kept burning but small, conserving the dwindling supply of firewood. The walls have been packed with extra straw for insulation, the cracks stuffed with moss and mud. Still, the cold seeps in, a living thing with teeth and claws. Boots, your father says one morning, as you all sit close to the fire eating a breakfast of hot water flavoured with a few precious dried herbs and thickened with a handful of acorn flour. We need to check everyone's boots. It's not an idle concern. With the snow so deep and the cold so bitter, feet are vulnerable. Already there's been word from the far end of the village of someone losing toes to frostbite. You all dutifully extend your feet, showing your leather shoes wrapped with strips of woolen cloth for extra warmth. Your father examines each one, making repairs with precious sinew thread where needed, adding extra layers of rabbit fur to your youngest brother's boots. "We're running low on oil for the lamps," your mother reports, checking the small clay vessels that provide light during the increasingly long nights. "We'll use them only when absolutely needed," your father decides. Darkness outside, darkness inside. He tries to make it sound like a joke, but no one laughs. Outside, the village has taken on a siege mentality. Paths are kept clear between houses, but only the most essential travel happens now. The communal hall has become the centre of life. Families take turns staying there, where a larger fire can be maintained. The remaining livestock are few thin cows, some goats, a handful of chickens that hardly lay anymore have been brought into shelters adjoining human habitations for mutual warmth. Today is your family's day at the communal hall. You bundle up in every layer you own and make the short but frigid journey. Inside, the hall is warmer than your home, but still far from comfortable. About 30 people are gathered, nearly a third of the village. They sit in family groups, talking quietly, mending clothes, carving useful implements from scraps of wood. The headman has organised a rotation for communal hall days to ensure that everyone gets at least some time in the warmer space each week. It's also become a way to check on every family regularly. Those who don't appear for their assigned day receive a visit to make sure they're still able to come. Not everyone always is. 3 more villagers have died since the first snow fell. An old man simply went to sleep and didn't wake up. A woman developed a cough that deepened into something worse. And most terribly, a small child, barely 2 years old, faded away despite her parents giving her most of their own food rations. The burials were difficult, with the ground frozen solid. The bodies were laid in the snow-covered churchyard, stones piled over them to keep predators away until spring thaws allow proper burial. If spring ever comes, your thoughts are interrupted by a commotion at the door. A hunting party has returned, 2 men half dragging a third between them. What happened? The headman hurries forward. "Wolves," gasps one of the men, easing his injured companion onto a bench near the fire. They've never been so bold. The injured hunter has deep gashes on one leg where fangs tore through his woolen leggings. As the village's healer, an old woman named Edith, tends to him, he tells his story through gritted teeth. "We were following deer tracks about half a day's walk north," he explains. "Good tracks, fresh. Then we realised we weren't the only ones following." The wolves had surrounded them, at least 7 by their count, not the usual cautious behaviour of wolves that normally avoid humans. These were gaunt with hunger, driven by the same desperation that afflicts everything living under the darkened sky. They attacked without warning, the hunter continues. Gunnar got the first one with his spear. I got another, but then they were on us. They had fought their way clear and managed to reach a stand of trees where they could defend themselves better. The wolves had followed for a time before giving up. They'll be back, the hunter concludes grimly. They know there's food here. The news casts a pall over the gathering. Wolves threatening hunting parties means even less chance of bringing in meat. It's also a warning that the village itself might become a target if the pack grows desperate enough. We'll organise larger hunting groups, the headman decides. No one goes out alone or even in pairs anymore, and we'll need to set watches at night. The added precautions mean more work for everyone when energy is already in short supply, but the alternative is unthinkable. Later, as the short, dim day fades toward true darkness, your family returns home. Your father immediately sets about reinforcing the door with additional bars. Your mother checks that the shutters are secured over the small window openings. Are the wolves really going to come into the village? Your younger sister asks, her eyes wide with fear. No, your father assures her, though you notice he continues his work on the door even as he speaks, but it's better to be careful. That night, you're awakened by howling, closer than you've ever heard it before. Your father rises silently, taking up his hunting spear. He stands by the door, listening. The howls continue for what seems like hours, sometimes receding, sometimes drawing nearer. Eventually they fade entirely, but your father keeps his vigil until the dim light of dawn begins to filter through the cracks in the shutters. Morning reveals no tracks in the fresh dusting of snow around your home, but other villagers report seeing wolf prints at the edges of the settlement. The pack is testing, probing for weakness. At the communal well, where you've gone to break the ice and draw water, you overhear 2 women talking in low voices. Said they're taking anyone who can make it to their gates, one murmurs. The journey alone would kill most of us, the other replies. Not if we wait for better weather. The trader said it might be warmer soon. And if it's not, if this is the new normal, the question hangs in the frigid air, unanswered. You finish filling your bucket and hurry home, the water sloshing and already forming a thin skin of ice on its surface. At home, your mother has laid out the family's remaining food stores on the small table. It's a sobering sight. A small sack of dried beans, a dwindling supply of acorn flour, some dried mushrooms collected using the monastery's knowledge, a few strips of dried meat rabbit mostly, with one precious piece of venison, dried berries gathered in the summer, now worth their weight in silver for the vitamin-rich sustenance they provide. How long? Your father asks simply. Your mother's face is tight with worry. 2 weeks at current rations, maybe 3 if we stretch it further. And after that, she has no answer. The day after next brings a break in the bitter cold, not warmth by any normal standard, but the wind shifts to the south and the constant snow eases. Your father declares it's time for a major hunting expedition. We'll go further than usual, he tells you as he prepares. There's a valley beyond the old oak forest where game might be sheltering. You've been chosen to join the hunting party, along with 6 other men and 2 women known for their skill with slings, old enough to be useful but not so essential to the village's daily functioning that your absence will be a hardship. It's your first major hunt, and despite the danger, you feel a flicker of pride at being included. Your mother helps you prepare, wrapping your feet with extra rags inside your boots, making sure your woolen cap covers your ears completely. Be careful, she says, and you hear the fear behind the simple words. Too many have left on hunting trips and not returned, lost to cold or predators or simple exhaustion. The hunting party assembles in the grey pre-dawn. Everyone is bundled against the cold, carrying what weapons they have: spears, bows, slings, snare ropes. In better times, it would almost look like a group preparing for a sporting contest. Now, the gaunt faces and desperate eyes tell a different story. This isn't sport, but survival. We stay together, declares Oswald, the lead hunter. No splitting up, no matter what we see. The wolves are still out there. You travel through the snow-covered landscape, following game trails that are faint but present. The forest, when you reach it, offers some shelter from the biting wind. Bare branches creak overhead. Occasionally, a clump of snow falls with a soft thump. Hours into your journey, one of the hunters spots tracks deer, and relatively fresh. They're heading toward the valley, Oswald confirms after examining the prints. Just as we hoped. The trail leads you deeper into unfamiliar territory. You've never been this far from the village before. The trees begin to thin, and ahead you can make out the depression of a small valley sheltered on three sides by low hills. And there, moving slowly through the snow, is a small herd of deer, perhaps a dozen animals, thin but alive, pawing at the snow to reach whatever vegetation lies beneath. "We need to encircle them," Oswald whispers. "Drive them toward the far end of the valley where it narrows. It's a dangerous strategy. Getting in position means spreading out, becoming more vulnerable, but the potential reward is too great to ignore." The hunters move with painstaking slowness, using the trees and folds of land for cover. You follow an older hunter named Leofric, trying to match his careful movements exactly. The deer continue grazing, occasionally raising their heads to test the air, but the wind is in your favour, carrying your scent away from them. Finally, Oswald gives the signal, a soft bird call that sounds entirely natural. The trap closes. Hunters emerge from cover, shouting and waving their arms. The deer startle, then flee in the only direction open to them, toward the narrow end of the valley where hunters wait with bows and spears. What follows is both terrible and wonderful. 3 deer fall to arrows and spears. A 4th is injured, but escapes with the rest of the herd. It's a stunning success, more meat at once than the village has seen since the darkness began. The work of field dressing the carcasses begins immediately. Nothing can be wasted. The blood is collected in water skins. It will be used for black pudding. The entrails are examined carefully, some parts set aside for eating, others for uses like sinew for sewing. Even the bones will be valuable for tools and broth. As you work alongside the others, your hands numb with cold, despite mittens, a strange sound reaches your ears. Not wolves, but something else moving through the forest at the edge of the valley. Everyone freezes, listening. "People," Leofric whispers finally, "coming this way." Oswald signals for everyone to gather the meat and prepare to leave. Strangers could mean danger, but it's too late for a clean escape. The other group emerges from the trees before you can disappear. There are about 10 of them, as ragged and hungry looking as your own group. They stop when they see you, their faces showing the same wariness you feel. "We mean no harm," calls their leader, a tall man with a greying beard. "We're from the settlement near the old Roman fort, 3 days east." Oswald steps forward as your group's representative. "What brings you this far west?" "Hunger," the man answers simply. "Same as you, I'd guess. The fort is... there's nothing left there." A murmur runs through your hunting party. Nothing left could mean many things, none of them good. The 2 groups regard each other cautiously. The stranger's eyes lock onto your deer carcasses, and you can see the naked hunger in their expressions. "We have families," their leader says. "Children." It's not quite a request, not quite a threat, but the implication is clear. They need food desperately. Oswald is silent for a long moment. Your village barely has enough for itself. Sharing means hunger. Not sharing means turning away fellow humans in need and possibly provoking a conflict no one has the strength for. We have 3 deer, Oswald finally says. You can have one. Relief washes over the strangers' faces. We won't forget this, their leader promises. If the light ever returns, if things ever improve, we'll remember. The deer is handed over and the 2 groups part ways, each returning to their own hungry communities with news and meat and the strange, bittersweet feeling of an encounter that could have turned ugly, but instead affirmed something essential about humanity that persists even in the darkest times. The journey back to the village is exhausting but buoyed by your success. Despite sharing with the strangers, you're returning with more meat than anyone dared hope for. It will make a crucial difference. As you approach the village, people come out to meet you, alerted by the sentry posted at the edge of the settlement. There are cries of joy when they see your burden. Hands reach out to help carry the precious meat. Faces that have grown accustomed to disappointment light up with hope. The meat is taken to the communal hall, where it will be properly butchered and distributed according to the system the village has developed, equal shares per person, with extra portions for the very young, the very old, and those doing the most physically demanding work. That evening, for the first time in months, the smell of roasting meat fills the air. A small celebration takes shape in the communal hall. It's subdued by the standards of better times. No one has the energy for true revelry, but there's a lightness that's been absent for too long. Musicians bring out instruments that have been carefully preserved despite the desperate times. A fiddle, a small hand drum, a bone whistle. The music is halting at first, the player's fingers stiff with cold and lack of practice, but it grows more confident. Someone begins to sing an old song about spring returning after winter. Others join in. Your family sits together, savouring small portions of the fresh meat. The rich taste after so long without is almost overwhelming. Your younger siblings' faces are smeared with grease, their eyes bright with rare contentment. Will this help us last until spring? You ask your father quietly. He considers the question carefully. It helps, he says finally. It's not enough by itself, but it gives us more time for something to change. For the sun to return? Yes, or for us to find new ways to survive if it doesn't. The music continues, people singing despite their hunger, despite the cold, despite the darkness that has hung over the world for months now. It's an act of defiance as much as celebration. As you watch the firelight play on the faces of your family and neighbours, you realise something has shifted. The survival of your community is still far from certain. Hunger still gnaws, the cold still threatens, but the successful hunt, the encounter with the strangers that ended in sharing rather than violence, the simple pleasure of one good meal and some music, these things have kindled something that had nearly gone out. Hope. Fragile and flickering, but alive. Later that night, as your family returns home through the snow, your father points upward. Look. You follow his gesture. Above, through a break in the clouds, a few stars are visible, dim and distant, but definitely there. Stars, your younger sister breathes, wonder in her voice. Some of the younger children have nearly forgotten what the night sky looked like before the darkness came. They were always there, your father says, behind the clouds, behind the ash. Some things endure, even when we can't see them. You stand together for a moment, necks craned upward, watching the small patch of stars. Then the clouds close again, and the moment passes. But like the hope kindled by the hunt, the memory of those stars remains, a reminder that the darkness, however long and terrible, is not, cannot be, Civil War soldiers were more likely to die from diarrhea than from bullets. No, Really, the disease killed 44,000 Union soldiers. That's the equivalent of 10 entire Gettysburg battles, and that was just one of the many diseases they faced. Hey, quick thing before we start. If you actually listen to these regularly, hit like or subscribe. I always wonder where everyone's at, so comment your city and what time it is. Weird to think some of you are having breakfast in London while I'm recording this at night here in the States. Alright, tonight it's the American Civil War, but before we go anywhere, get comfortable. Like, actually comfortable. Pillows good? Blanket situation handled? Perfect. Trust me on this one. Your eyes open to early morning light filtering through canvas. April 1863, Union Army, somewhere in Pennsylvania. First thing you notice is the straw poking through your thin blanket, jabbing into your back like tiny daggers. The wool blanket you're wrapped in scratches your skin and smells like wet dog mixed with sweat, not like your plush mattress at home. What pulls you fully awake is the sound, a bugle blaring reveille, hundreds of men coughing, someone nearby groaning with stomach cramps. That's becoming a familiar sound in camp, too familiar. Get up, Fletcher captain's coming through. You're Thomas Fletcher, 16 years old, though your enlistment papers say 18. You've been in the Union Army for exactly 3 weeks, and every morning you wake up wondering what the hell you were thinking. Back on your family's farm in western Pennsylvania, this time of morning meant feeding animals and helping Ma with breakfast. Now it means rushing to get dressed before the officers come through, trying to find clean water to wash your face, and praying your stomach doesn't betray you like it did yesterday. I swear to God, says your tent mate Wilkins, a factory worker from Philadelphia, if I have to dig another latrine today, I'm deserting. He doesn't mean it, not really, but the sentiment is there. The ground outside is mud. Not regular mud, this special kind of mud made by thousands of men living in close quarters with poor drainage. It's mixed with horse manure, human waste that didn't make it to the latrines, and whatever else has been discarded. And the smell? Jesus. I can't even describe it properly. It was bad. Like gag reflex bad. You'd probably need to breathe through your mouth. You know what's wild? 3 weeks ago, you were so excited to join. You'd heard Lincoln's call for volunteers, listened to the recruiter talk about glory and saving the Union, watched the town celebrate as you and 5 other boys signed up. Your ma cried, but your pa looked proud. Said you were doing what needed doing. Nobody told you about the mud, or the food, or the dysentery. Fletcher uniform inspection in 10 minutes. Get your ass moving. That's Sergeant Miller, former schoolteacher from Boston, seems to enjoy making your life miserable. You stumble out of your tent into the chaos of camp. 15,000 men all doing the same thing at once creates a special kind of madness. The camp stretches for miles, tents arranged in neat rows that somehow still look messy, campfires sending smoke into the morning air, men in various states of dress rushing about. Your stomach growls. Breakfast will be hardtack and salt pork, if you're lucky. Hardtack is basically a brick made of flour that could crack your teeth if you're not careful. Most guys soak it in coffee to soften it up. Problem is, sometimes that reveals the weevils living inside. Extra protein, the veterans joke. You're not laughing yet. Look alive, boys. It's Corporal Jenkins, looking way too chipper for this hour. Word is we're moving out tomorrow, heading south. The words send a jolt through you. South means closer to battle. You enlisted to fight, sure, but the reality of it is starting to sink in. They say Lee's army is on the move, Jenkins continues, lowering his voice like he's sharing state secrets. Could be the big one. William, the quiet farmer's son from Ohio who sleeps on your other side, looks up from lacing his boots. My pa says every battle is the big one until the next one comes along. Smart kid, William. Barely older than you, but sometimes seems like he's carrying the wisdom of someone 3 times his age. His hands are permanently stained with dirt from the farm, much like yours. The morning routine is mind-numbing but necessary. Roll call, breakfast, more drilling, cleaning your rifle until you can see your reflection in the metal. You fired it exactly twice during training. Some of the boys had never held a gun before enlisting. "You seen Johnson this morning?" asks Wilkins, chewing on hardtack that makes an audible crunch with each bite. "Infirmary," says William quietly. "Fever got worse in the night." A moment of silence falls between you. 3 men from your company have already died of disease, and you haven't even seen battle yet. The infirmary tent is a place of nightmares, men moaning in pain, the smell of infected wounds and body odour, harried doctors moving from cot to cot with barely a glance at each patient. After breakfast, which is a generous way of describing what you just ate, it's drill time. 2 hours of marching back and forth across a muddy field, practicing formations that supposedly matter in battle. Forward march, right face, about face, load in 9 times, present arms. Your drill instructor is a weather-beaten man named Corporal Haynes who fought in the Mexican War. His voice carries across the field like thunder. "You call that a formation. My dead grandmother could make a straighter line again. The rifle is heavy. That's the thing nobody tells you. The Springfield model 1861 weighs about 10 pounds, which doesn't sound like much until you're holding it at shoulder arms for an hour. Your muscles burn. Sweat trickles down your back despite the cool spring air. But Haynes keeps pushing. When you meet Johnny Reb on the battlefield, you'll thank me. Loading your rifle needs to be instinct. You hesitate, you die. You try not to think about the dying part. Mid-morning brings a different kind of drill, bayonet practice, charging at straw dummies tied to posts, stabbing and slashing with a foot-long blade attached to your rifle. The thought of driving this into another human being makes your stomach turn, but you push the feeling down. This is what you signed up for. "Put your weight into it, Fletcher," Haynes barks. "They won't just stand there and let you poke 'em." By noon, your uniform is soaked through with sweat and your hands are blistered. There's a brief respite for a meal that's nearly identical to breakfast, and then it's equipment inspection. The sergeant walks down the line, examining each soldier's kit: rifle, bayonet, cartridge box, cat pouch, haversack, canteen, blanket, roll. Everything must be in place, clean as possible given the circumstances. "Your rifle's filthy, Thompson," he says to the man next to you. "Clean it again." When he reaches you, he pauses. "Boots coming apart, Fletcher. See the quartermaster after this." You glance down. Sure enough, the sole of your right boot is separating from the upper. Great. The quartermaster is notoriously stingy with new equipment. "Stitch it together," he'll probably say. "We're not made of boots." After inspection comes fatigue duty, the Army's term for chores. Today, your squad is assigned to dig new latrines. The old ones are filling up fast and the smell is becoming unbearable even by camp standards. So you spend 2 hours digging trenches in the hard ground, taking turns with worn shovels. "You know what my father told me before I left," says Wilkins, pausing to wipe sweat from his brow. "He said, 'Son, in the army you'll see the best and worst of men.' He didn't mention I'd be smelling the worst too." That gets a laugh from the group. Humour, however crude, is your collective shield against the reality of your situation. By late afternoon, your hands are raw and your back aches, but the new latrines are dug. You head to the creek that runs along the edge of camp to wash up. The water is cold and not particularly clean, too many men using it upstream, but it's better than nothing. As you're scrubbing dirt from your hands, William appears beside you. "Letter call came while we were digging," he says, holding out an envelope. "This one's for you." Your heart leaps. Mail from home is the most precious thing in camp. You dry your hands on your trousers and take the letter carefully. Your mother's handwriting. You'll save it for tonight, something to look forward to. Any for you? You ask William. He shakes his head. Not today. Dinner is beans and salt pork, with coffee so weak it's practically brown water, but you eat every bite. One thing the army has taught you: never skip a meal. You never know when the next one is coming. As the sun begins to set, an unusual excitement runs through the camp. A travelling photographer has arrived and set up his equipment near the officers' tents. For 25 cents, soldiers can have their portrait taken to send home. Should we do it? Wilkins asks, genuinely excited for the first time in days. You check your meagre funds. 25 cents is a lot, nearly half of what you have left from your last pay. But the thought of sending your portrait home to your mother... Let's do it, you decide. The line is long, but you wait patiently. When your turn comes, the photographer, a thin, nervous man with ink-stained fingers, positions you in front of a plain backdrop. Chin up. Look brave, he instructs. You try your best to look like a soldier, not a frightened farm boy. The flash powder ignites with a bright burst and acrid smoke. That's it. In 2 weeks, if you're lucky, your mother will receive a tintype of her son in uniform. As darkness falls, campfires flicker to life across the vast encampment. Your company gathers around one, the familiar faces illuminated by the dancing flames. Someone has a harmonica and plays a mournful rendition of Home Sweet Home that makes your chest tight with longing. Now feels like the right time to read your letter. You carefully open the envelope, preserving it for a reply. Your mother's words leap off the page. News of home, how your father's managing the farm without you, your sister's new baby, you're an uncle now, questions about whether you're eating enough and staying warm. There's no mention of the war itself, as if by not acknowledging it, she can keep you safe. The letter ends with a pressed wildflower from the meadow behind your house. The sight of it nearly undoes you. Good news? Asks William, noticing your expression. I'm an uncle, you manage, carefully tucking the flower back into the envelope. Around the fire, men share bits of news from their own letters, creating a patchwork map of home across the northern states. Stories of harvests and church socials and town gossips feel like dispatches from another world, but the conversation inevitably turns to tomorrow's march, and what might lie beyond it. My cousin was at Bull Run, says Thompson, poking at the fire with a stick. Said it was pure chaos. Men running in every direction, couldn't tell friend from foe through the smoke. My brother fought at Shiloh, another soldier adds. Said the dead were so thick on the ground you couldn't walk without stepping on somebody. You listen silently, fear coiling in your stomach. These are the stories they don't print in newspapers, that recruiters don't tell wide-eyed boys signing their names. Enough of that talk, Jenkins interrupts. We'll face what comes when it comes. No use borrowing trouble. Wise words, but cold comfort as you return to your tent for the night. The canvas structure seems flimsy protection against what awaits you in the days ahead. You settle onto your bedroll, the straw crackling beneath you. Outside, the sounds of camp gradually quiet, the occasional laugh, a bout of coughing, the distant neigh of horses. Above the tent, through a small gap in the canvas, you can see stars dotting the night sky. The same stars shine over your family's farm, over the Confederate camps somewhere to the south, over a country tearing itself apart. Sleep comes fitfully, as it always does in camp. Your dreams are a confusion of home and war, familiar faces and nameless fears. Tomorrow, you march toward whatever waits beyond the horizon. What you don't know yet is that this relatively comfortable camp life, despite its hardships, will soon seem like luxury. The mud, the poor food, the endless drilling, all of it preparing you for something much worse. But for now, you sleep, rifle within arm's reach, surrounded by men who were strangers 3 weeks ago and now know your snoring patterns. In the morning, the bugle will wake you again and the next chapter of your war will begin. The bugle sounds before dawn, jerking you from what little sleep you manage to get. Outside your tent, the camp is already stirring, an anthill of activity as 15,000 men prepare to march. "Rise and shine, princess," Wilkins says, already pulling on his boots. "Today's the day we earn our glory." "Or our coffins," William mutters, but only you hear him. Breakfast is hardtack and lukewarm coffee. You've learned to pound the hardtack into crumbs and mix it with coffee, creating a grey paste that's easier to swallow than trying to bite the rock-hard biscuit. Tastes like wet cardboard, but it fills the stomach. By first light, you're standing in formation with your company. The morning air is crisp, mist hanging low over the fields. Captain Hayes paces in front of the line, his boots polished despite the mud. He's young for a captain, maybe 25, with a neat moustache and eyes that have already seen too much. "Men," he says, voice carrying across the silent ranks. "We march south today to join the main army, 10 miles at least. Light packs, full canteens. Any man who falls out will answer to me personally. 10 miles doesn't sound too bad. Back home, you'd walk that far, just checking fences." But that was without a 10-pound rifle, 40 rounds of ammunition, a bayonet, canteen, haversack, and everything else the army deems necessary. The regiment moves out with surprising order, each company filing into place on the road. From your position you can see the column stretching ahead and behind, thousands of men in blue, a giant centipede winding through the countryside. The early sun glints off rifle barrels and brass buttons. Flags snap in the breeze. It would be beautiful if it wasn't terrifying. "You know what's crazy," Wilkins says, as you settle into the marching rhythm. "More people in this column than live in my entire hometown." He's right. It's hard to wrap your head around. All these men from farms and factories and shops across the Union, now moving as one massive organism toward whatever waits ahead. The first hour passes easily enough. The road is decent, spirits are high, and some men even sing as they march. John Brown's body echoes up and down the line. You join in at the chorus, feeling a part of something bigger than yourself. Then the road turns to mud. Recent rains have transformed the route into a brown soup that sucks at your boots with every step. What was a steady march becomes a slog. The singing dies away, replaced by curses and laboured breathing. Your pack straps dig into your shoulders. Each step requires extra effort to pull your foot from the mire. This, Wilkins pants beside you, is bullshit. 2 hours in, and the first men begin to fall out. Not many, mostly the obviously sick or elderly, but enough to notice the gaps forming in the column. An officer on horseback rides alongside, shouting encouragement that sounds more like threats. "Keep moving, any man stopping will face court-martial." By noon, your uniform is soaked with sweat despite the cool spring air. Your feet are screaming, blisters forming where your damp socks rub against poorly fitted boots. The column halts briefly beside a stream, officers allowing 15 minutes to refill canteens and relieve yourselves. You collapse on a patch of grass, legs trembling with fatigue. William sits beside you, face pale beneath a layer of road dust. Neither of you speaks, saving energy for what's ahead. Wilkins, somehow still energetic, drops down beside you and pulls off his boots. "First rule of marching," he says, inspecting his feet. "Take care of these, or you're finished." He produces a small tin of grease from his pocket and begins rubbing it on the raw spots. Got this from an old Mex War veteran. Sheep fat mixed with beeswax. Stops the rubbing. He offers you the tin. The grease smells rancid, but you apply it gratefully to your own blistered heels. It's disgusting, but feels instantly better. "How far you reckon we've come?" William asks, accepting the tin next. Wilkins squints at the sun. 5-6 miles, maybe. Halfway there, if the captain was telling the truth. The thought isn't comforting. The 15-minute rest ends too quickly. Back on your feet, back in formation, back to putting one foot in front of the other. The road climbs now, winding up a gentle hill that feels like a mountain to your tired legs. As you crest the rise, something new appears ahead. Wagons, dozens of them coming toward the column. Ambulance wagons painted white with red crosses. The column parts to let them pass, and that's when you get your first real look at war. The wagons are packed with wounded men. Some sit upright, bandages around heads or arms, eyes vacant. Others lie flat, moaning with each bump in the road. The worst are ominously still, covered with blankets despite the warm afternoon. "Jesus Christ," Wilkins whispers, his usual humour gone. A soldier in a blood-stained uniform sits at the edge of one wagon, missing an arm below the elbow. His remaining hand clutches a Bible. He makes eye contact with you as the wagon passes, and you see something in his expression that chills you. Not pain, but a strange distance, as if he's looking at you from across an unbridgeable chasm. The wagons keep coming. 10, 20, 30. How many men? Hundreds, at least, all headed north, away from wherever you're marching toward. "That's the 12th Massachusetts," someone in the ranks says. "They got hit bad at Chancellorsville." Chancellorsville. The name means nothing to you now, but soon it will join the growing lexicon of battle names that every soldier knows, places where men died in droves. The column marches on, but the mood has changed. The reality of what awaits has been made flesh in those broken bodies. Conversation dies away. Even the officers ride more quietly. By late afternoon, your world has narrowed to the few feet of road ahead and the endless cycle of placing one foot before the other. Your shoulders burn from the weight of your gear. Your throat is parched despite careful sips from your canteen. Hunger gnaws at your belly. When the order finally comes to make camp, it's like a reprieve from execution. The regiment files off the road into a large meadow, already filling with other units. Tents go up with practiced efficiency, despite exhausted hands. Fires flicker to life as darkness falls. You sit with your company, too tired to even complain, watching the coffee boil in the shared pot. Your feet throb inside your boots, but you're afraid to remove them, not sure you can get them back on over your swollen feet. 10 miles, the captain said. Wilkins groans, lying flat on his back. That was 15 if it was a step. 16, corrects a new voice. You look up to see a lean, weathered soldier standing at the edge of your firelight. He's older, 30 at least, with a sergeant's stripes and a cavalry trooper's unmistakable bow-legged stance. "Saw you boys coming in," he says, squatting down beside your fire. "First big march?" You nod, too tired for words. He chuckles. "Gets easier. Sort of." He extends a hand. "Sergeant Michael Reeves, 8th Pennsylvania Cavalry." "You been fighting long?" William asks after introductions. Reeves nods, accepting a cup of coffee from Wilkins. "Since 61. Bull Run, Peninsula Campaign, Antietam, Fredericksburg." He lists the battles like stops on a familiar road. "What's it like?" you hear yourself ask. "The fighting, I mean." Reeves studies you over the rim of his cup. His eyes are green, you notice, but somehow darker than any eyes you've seen. Ain't like anything they tell you, he says finally. Ain't glorious, ain't noble. It's loud and it's confusing and it's... He pauses. It's men trying to kill each other is what it is. He must see the fear in your faces because his expression softens slightly. Look, you're in a good outfit. 6th Corps has solid leadership. Stay together, do what your officers tell you, and most of you will make it through. Most, not all. The word hangs in the air. Any of you boys know how to play poker? Reeves asks, changing the subject. None of you do, but he teaches you the basics using pebbles for chips. For an hour, you forget your aching feet and the long march ahead as you learn flushes and straights and full houses. Reeves wins most hands, but lets each of you take a victory too. As the game winds down, he becomes reflective. Been at this 2 years now, he says, shuffling the worn cards with practiced ease. Seen things I hope you boys never do, but I'll tell you this, it ain't the Rebs you need to fear most out here. What then? Asks William. Yourself, Reeves says simply. Fear will kill you faster than any bullet. Man gets scared enough, he freezes up, or he runs. Either way, he's done for. He deals another hand, then continues. But there's something worse than fear out here. You wait for him to continue, not sure you want to hear it. Indifference, he says. Seen it happen to good men. They stop caring, stop seeing the dead as people, start thinking of everything as just something to get through. He taps the deck. That's when you lose something you don't get back. The conversation turns sombre after that. Reeves bids you good night, promising to look for you when the dance starts, as he puts it. Sleep comes quickly, despite the hard ground. Your body is too exhausted to care about comfort, but sometime in the dead of night you wake suddenly, unsure why. Then you hear it, screaming. Not battle cries or calls for help, but the terrible sound of a man trapped in his own mind. Night terrors, William whispers beside you. My uncle got 'em after the Mex War. Somewhere in the vast encampment, a soldier is reliving horrors in his sleep. The screams eventually stop, but sleep is harder to find afterward. Dawn arrives with the inevitable bugle. Your body protests every movement, muscles stiff from yesterday's march, but there's no choice. The army moves on with or without you. Breakfast is meagre. The supply wagons are running behind, the quartermaster explains. You divide hardtack and share coffee, everyone getting less than they need. As your company forms up, you notice gaps in the ranks. Some men who started yesterday aren't here today, fallen out, sent to the ambulance wagons, or simply disappeared in the night. Desertion is rarely mentioned, but everyone knows it happens. The second day's march begins like the first, but the pace seems slower. Men are already tired, feet already blistered. The road is crowded now with artillery batteries, supply wagons and cavalry scouts moving back and forth along the column. Around mid-morning, a new sound reaches your ears, a distant rumble like summer thunder, but in a cloudless sky. Artillery, says an older private named Davis. Big guns, 15-20 miles south. A murmur passes through the ranks. Battle somewhere ahead. The abstract suddenly becomes concrete. Your mouth goes dry despite the water in your canteen. The column presses on, the distant bombardment a constant reminder of your destination. The officers look more serious now, conferring in hushed voices as they ride alongside. By noon, new sights appear along the roadside, evidence that the war has passed this way before. A chimney standing alone, the house it belonged to now ashes and blackened timbers, fields trampled by thousands of boots and hooves, an abandoned cannon, its barrel burst from overuse. "Welcome to Virginia, boys," Wilkins says grimly. You're in the south now, enemy territory, though this part has changed hands so many times it's hard to say who it belongs to anymore. The few civilians you see watch from doorways with expressionless faces, neither welcoming nor hostile, just tired. A mile further, you pass something that stops conversations mid-sentence. A tree beside the road, and from one sturdy branch, a noose. It swings empty in the breeze, but the message is clear. Someone died here, whether deserter, spy, or civilian, impossible to say. The march continues through the afternoon, your feet moving automatically now, mind somewhere far away. You think of home, of your mother's cooking, of the soft bed waiting in a farmhouse hundreds of miles north. The distance feels insurmountable. Late in the day, rain begins to fall, a gentle shower at first, then a steady downpour that soaks through your uniform in minutes. Water drips from your cap into your eyes. Your already blistered feet now squish with each step, the wet leather of your boots rubbing raw skin. When camp is finally made, it's in a muddy field already churned by previous regiments. No fires tonight, the wood is too wet, and smoke might give away positions to enemy scouts. Cold rations, eaten in the rain, huddled under whatever shelter you can find. Your tent, pitched hastily in the downpour, leaks from a dozen places. You, Wilkins, and William sit in miserable silence, water pooling around your legs, too wet and tired to even complain. "My sister got married last Sunday," William says suddenly, staring at nothing. "Wrote me about it last month, said she wished I could be there to see it." The random statement hangs in the damp air, a reminder of the normal lives continuing elsewhere, oblivious to your current misery. "My girl's probably walking out with Jimmy Porter by now," Wilkins adds. "Told her not to wait, but she promised she would." You think of your own family, wondering what they're doing at this moment. Sitting down to dinner, perhaps. Your empty chair at the table, your father saying grace, maybe asking God to watch over his son. "Why'd you join up?" you ask Wilkins, realising you've never discussed it. He's quite so long, you think he hasn't heard. Finally, "Factory where I worked shut down. Army pays regular, at least." A pause. "You?" The truth is complicated. Patriotism, yes. Adventure, certainly. But mostly because everyone expected it, because saying no seemed harder than saying yes. "Seemed like the right thing," is all you say. William nods, as if this makes perfect sense. "My older brother died at Antietam," he says softly. "Felt like I owed it to him." The rain drums on the canvas above. Somewhere in the vast camp, a harmonica plays a melancholy tune that seems to capture everything you're feeling. Sleep comes in fits and starts, your body too uncomfortable for true rest. Twice you wake to roll away from water dripping directly on your face. Morning arrives grey and drizzly. The march resumes, somehow even more miserable than before. The mud is deeper, the fatigue more profound, the muscles more sore. But something new enters the equation today. Anticipation. The artillery sounds are closer now, no longer distant rumbles but distinct booms that occasionally shake the ground. Cavalry couriers gallop past the column with increasing frequency, carrying dispatches to and from the front. You're close now, close to whatever awaits. Around midday, the column halts more permanently than the usual short breaks. Officers ride back and forth, conferring and pointing. The men use the opportunity to rest, though the air of tension prevents true relaxation. "What's happening?" William asks, though none of you have answers. An hour passes before Captain Hayes approaches your company. His uniform is mud-splattered, but his voice is steady. "We'll be making camp here," he announces. "The main Union army is deployed 3 miles ahead. We join them tomorrow morning." The news sweeps through the ranks like wildfire. Tomorrow you might see battle. As tents are raised and fires lit, rumors fly faster than cavalry scouts. The Confederate army is just beyond that ridge. No, they're retreating toward Richmond. Lee himself is commanding the Southern forces. No, he's miles away. The fighting will be minimal. No, it will be the biggest battle of the war. In this storm of speculation, Sergeant Reeves appears at your campfire again. He looks different today. Alert, focused, his cavalry uniform crisp despite the conditions. "Thought I'd find you boys here," he says, declining coffee this time. "Wanted to check in before tomorrow." "What's really happening?" Wilkins asks directly. Reeves glances around, then lowers his voice. "Confederate forces are dug in along a creek about 4 miles south. Good defensive position. Our boys have been probing their lines since yesterday, looking for weakness. Will we attack, you ask, your mouth suddenly dry. Or be attacked, Reeves says with a shrug. That's for the generals to decide. Either way, your regiment will likely see action. He stands to leave, then hesitates. Listen, he says, looking at each of you in turn. First time under fire there's no preparing for it. Just remember your training. Load, aim, fire, load, aim, fire. Don't think beyond that. As darkness falls, an unusual quiet settles over the camp. Men write letters home by firelight, clean their weapons for the dozenth time, or simply sit in contemplation. A chaplain moves among the companies, offering prayers and communion to those who want it. You find yourself unable to write the letter you've been composing in your head all day. What do you say when tomorrow might be your last day on Earth? What words can possibly bridge that gap? In the end, you write simply, "Dear Ma and Pa, we've marched to Virginia. I'm well. Don't worry. I'll write again when I can. Your loving son, Thomas." It feels inadequate, but it will have to do. You seal the envelope and give it to the company mail orderly, who promises to send it north with the next courier. The night deepens. Fires burn low. Around one nearby, a group of veterans from another regiment are sharing stories, not of battles, as you might expect, but of strange occurrences and superstitions. "Swear on my mother's Bible," one bearded soldier is saying as you approach their circle. "Saw a man at Fredericksburg take 7 bullets, center mass, and walk away without a scratch. Had a Bible in his breast pocket, stopped the first one, and the rest just went around him somehow." Another veteran snorts. "That's nothing. We had a fella in our company, night before Antietam, dreamed he saw his own grave with his name on it. Next day, first volley, bullet right through the heart. You listen, both fascinated and disturbed. These are the tales of the war that don't make it into newspapers or official reports." "You know what keeps you alive out there?" asks a third soldier, a sergeant with an empty sleeve pinned up. "Not luck, not skill. It's having something to live for. Man wants to see home again bad enough. Somehow the bullets miss him. Or having something worth dying for," adds another quietly. You return to your own fire thoughtful. Wilkins is cleaning his rifle again, though it's already immaculate. Williams stares into the flames, saying nothing. None of you mentions tomorrow. As you settle onto your bedroll for what might be your last peaceful night, you find yourself hyper-aware of everything. The scratch of wool blankets, distant laughter from another campfire, the occasional whinny of horses. Life, in all its messy detail, suddenly precious. Sleep, when it finally comes, is surprisingly deep. Your exhausted body overrides your anxious mind, and in the black hours before dawn, the bugle calls you to what waits ahead. The bugle tears through darkness, jerking you from sleep. For a moment, disorientation grips you. Where are you? Then reality crashes back. Virginia, the army, today. Around you, the camp erupts into activity. Men stumbling from tents, officers shouting orders, the clatter of equipment being gathered in the pre-dawn gloom. No time for proper breakfast, just hardtack stuffed into pockets and cold coffee gulped down between preparations. Captain Hayes moves through the company, his face grim. Full battle gear, 60 rounds of ammunition per man. Fill your canteens completely. Your hands shake slightly as you prepare. Loading your cartridge box feels different today. Each paper-wrapped bullet might soon be fired at another human being, or might save your life. The weight of your equipment, normally annoying, now feels reassuring, especially the bayonet. As the eastern sky lightens to grey, your regiment forms up with the others of your brigade. No drums this morning, no bands playing, just thousands of men standing silently in formation, breath fogging in the cool air. Colonel Montgomery, your regimental commander, rides to the front. Even from your position in the ranks, you can see his face is deadly serious. Men of the 140th Pennsylvania, his voice carries over the quiet ranks. Today we join the Army of the Potomac in battle against Confederate forces. You will conduct yourselves with courage and discipline. Remember your training. Remember why we fight. For the Union. For freedom. The speech is brief, lacking the fiery patriotism of recruitment rallies. This is different. This is real. The regiment moves out as dawn breaks, marching in column along a narrow country road. After about an hour, you notice a change in the surroundings. Fence rails torn down for firewood, trees splintered by artillery, deep ruts in the road from gun carriages, the signs of armies. Then you hear it. Not the distant rumble of yesterday, but actual gunfire. Sharp cracks of rifles, the heavier boom of artillery. It's still some distance away, but unmistakable now. Wilkins glances at you, sweat already beading on his forehead despite the cool morning. Guess they started without us. No one laughs. Humour feels strange now, out of place. The column quickens its pace. Messages pass up and down the line of officers. Ahead, you can see a ridge where other Union regiments are already deployed. Blue lines against the green hillside. "That's our position," Captain Hayes announces, pointing to an open field near the centre of the ridge. "We're reinforcing the line. As your regiment approaches, the sounds of battle grow louder. You can now distinguish individual volleys, the synchronised crash of hundreds of rifles firing at once. The ground occasionally trembles from artillery. Your mouth is desert dry despite water from your canteen. Your bowels feel loose. Veterans say it happens to everyone before battle, the body preparing to shed weight for flight or fight. Some men stop to relieve themselves at the roadside, ignoring the usual camp modesty. "Jesus," William whispers beside you. "Look at that." Beyond the ridge, smoke hangs over the distant tree line, white puffs from artillery mixed with the darker smoke of rifle fire. Through gaps in the smoke you can see flashes of movement, men advancing, retreating or falling. Colonel Montgomery halts the regiment at the base of the ridge. "Fix bayonets." The sound of steel blades clicking onto 1,500 rifle barrels sends a chill through you. This isn't drill anymore. You climb the ridge in line of battle, shoulder to shoulder with the men of your company, other companies ahead and behind. Every step brings the sounds of conflict closer, louder. At the crest, you get your first clear view of the battlefield below. It's nothing like you imagined. A creek runs through a shallow valley bordered by woods on the far side. Between the ridge where you stand and that creek is open farmland, now torn by shell holes and scattered with dark shapes you realise with horror are bodies. The far woods are shrouded in gun smoke, but you can see flashes of fire within, Confederate positions. Union batteries are positioned along your ridge, the artillerymen working their guns with mechanical precision. Every few seconds, a cannon fires with a deafening boom, adding to the constant crash of sound. Captain Hayes positions your company in a gap between two batteries. "We hold this line," he shouts over the noise. "Fire on command only." You stand in the front rank, rifle gripped so tightly your knuckles are white. Beside you, William's face is pale, his lips moving in what might be prayer. On your other side, Wilkins stares ahead with strange intensity. Minutes pass like hours. The Confederate artillery has the range of your position now. Shells explode on the ridge, showering dirt and deadly fragments. You flinch at each explosion, fighting the urge to duck or run. 100 yards to your right, a shell lands directly on a gun crew. The explosion lifts one man completely off his feet, throwing him yards away. Another crumples instantly. The survivors continue loading their cannon as if nothing happened. "Get ready," Captain Hayes shouts. Through the smoke in the valley, you see movement. A line of grey, Confederate infantry advancing across the open ground toward your position. Their battle flags flutter above them. Even at this distance, you can see bayonets gleaming. Colonel Montgomery rides behind your line. "Steady, boys. Hold your fire." The grey line advances steadily despite artillery tearing gaps in their ranks. They're within rifle range now, but still no order comes to fire. The waiting is its own kind of torture. The command finally comes when the Confederates are about 300 yards away. You raise your rifle, trying to steady it against your shoulder as you've practiced. But this is different from shooting at targets. These are men coming toward you, intent on killing you if they can. Fire. 1,500 rifles discharge as one. The noise is like physical force punching through your ears. The recoil slams your rifle butt against your shoulder. Smoke envelops the line, so thick you can hardly see. Through breaks in the smoke, you glimpse the effect of your volley. The Confederate line staggers, dozens of men falling, but they don't break. They continue advancing, and now they're returning fire. Bullets whip past with angry buzzing sounds. Some strike the ground, kicking up dirt. Others hit with the sickening thud of lead striking flesh. The man 2 spaces to your left jerks backward, a dark hole appearing in his forehead. He drops without a sound, dead weight. "Load," Captain Hayes orders. Your training takes over. Bite cartridge, pour powder, ram bullet, place cap. Each motion practiced hundreds of times, now performed with desperate urgency. Aim fire. Another volley, another shock of noise and smoke. The rhythm continues. Load, aim, fire, load, aim, fire. As if time has compressed into just these 3 actions. Your world narrows to the rifle in your hands, the choking smoke around you, the grey line still advancing despite your fire. You lose track of how many volleys you've fired. Your shoulder aches from the rifle's recoil. Your ears ring so badly you can barely hear commands, following the actions of men beside you instead. The Confederate line has closed to about 100 yards, close enough to see faces beneath the hats, to distinguish officers from enlisted men. Someone screams to your right, not the scream of fear, but the higher, more terrible sound of agony. You don't look, can't look. Keep loading. Keep firing. A new sound cuts through the chaos. The rebel yell. The Confederate line surges forward at a run, their high-pitched battle cry sending ice through your veins. "Stand firm," Colonel Montgomery shouts, riding behind your line. "Repel them with cold steel if..." His words cut off as a bullet strikes him. He slumps forward over his horse's neck, then falls heavily to the ground. The horse bolts. The Confederate charge reaches the bottom of the ridge and starts up the slope. They're only 50 yards away now, running hard despite their casualties. Captain Hayes draws his sword. Prepare to receive charge. You grip your rifle with bayonet fixed, heart hammering against your ribs. They're going to reach your line. This will be hand to hand. But then, movement to your left. Fresh Union troops arriving at a run, thousands of them, forming quickly into battle line. Their artillery unlimbers on a small rise, the crews working with frantic energy. A new thunder joins the cacophony as these guns open fire on the Confederate flank. The effect is devastating. Entire sections of the Grey Line disappear in explosions of dirt and smoke. The Confederate charge falters, then stops. For a moment, the battleground becomes a tableau. Blue and grey lines facing each other across a shrinking gap, the air between filled with smoke and death. Then the grey line breaks. Not all at once, but man by man, squad by squad, they begin falling back toward the creek. Their retreat quickly becomes general. Fire, pour it into them, Captain Hayes orders. You find yourself firing mechanically, reloading and firing again without conscious thought. The smoke is so thick you can barely see your targets. You're not sure if you're hitting anything, not sure if you want to. The Confederate retreat becomes a rout, men running, dropping equipment to move faster. Union artillery continues firing into their backs as they flee toward the creek and the woods beyond. And then, sudden silence. Not complete, moans of the wounded rise from the field. Officers still shout commands, but the constant crash of battle subsides. You stand panting, ears ringing, surrounded by smoke that slowly drifts away on the breeze. Your rifle barrel is too hot to touch. Your mouth tastes of gunpowder. Your uniform is soaked with sweat and black with powder residue. They're running, Wilkins shouts, voice cracking with emotion. We beat them. But there's no jubilation in the line. Just exhaustion and stunned silence as reality begins to register. Men looking around, counting who's missing. William stands beside you, pale but intact. Did you see the colonel go down? He asks, shakily. You nod, unable to form words yet. The image of Colonel Montgomery falling from his horse seems branded into your vision. Captain Hayes moves along the line, checking casualties. Your company has been lucky. Only 3 dead, a dozen wounded. Others fared worse. The company to your right lost over half its men. Get water and ammunition, the captain orders. This isn't over. He's right. In the distance, Confederate artillery still fires occasionally. Their infantry has retreated, but they're regrouping beyond the creek. This was just one engagement in what might be days of battle. The wounded are carried to the rear, where field hospitals have been established in farmhouses and barns. The dead are laid in rows, awaiting burial details. You help carry one of your company, a man named Ellis, who you barely knew, placing him gently beside others in blue uniforms. Hours pass in a strange blur. You help distribute ammunition, carry water to the artillery crews, build hasty breastworks along the ridge using fence rails and dirt, anything to stay busy to avoid thinking about what just happened, what might happen next. Late afternoon finds you sitting with Wilkins and William in the shelter of a stone wall. You're eating salt pork and hardtack, though none of you has much appetite. The food sticks in your throat, but you force it down, knowing you need strength. I never fired a gun at a living thing before today, William says quietly. Not even a rabbit? Wilkins nods. I kept imagining they were targets, like at drill. He pauses. Except targets don't scream when they fall. You say nothing. What is there to say? You're all trying to process experiences that have no frame of reference in normal life. You boys made it then. Sergeant Reeves appears beside your wall, dismounting from his horse with fluid grace. His uniform is dusty, and there's a bandage around his left forearm, but he seems otherwise intact. Your first taste of it, he says, sitting heavily beside you. Not a question. Is it always like that? You manage to ask. Reeves shakes his head. No, sometimes it's worse. He accepts a drink from your canteen. You held the line. That's what matters. We killed them, William says, voice hollow. We just killed them. They were trying to kill you too, Reeves replies, not unkindly. That's war. A shout from the ridge interrupts whatever else he might have said. Officers are calling men back to positions. In the distance, movement in the Confederate lines suggests another attack may be forming. Back to it, Reeves says, standing. Remember what I told you. Focus on the immediate. Load, aim, fire. The rest is... He gestures vaguely. The rest comes later. The expected Confederate attack doesn't materialize before darkness falls. Instead, both armies settle into an uneasy nighttime vigilance. Your regiment remains in position on the ridge, half the men awake at any time while others catch what sleep they can. You're among the first watch, standing in the darkness, rifle ready, staring toward where you know the Confederate lines must be, though you can see nothing. Occasionally, a flare illuminates the landscape, casting eerie shadows, or artillery fires blindly into the night. The strangest thing is the sound. Not battle noise now, but the moans and cries of wounded men still lying on the field between the lines. Men too badly hurt to crawl to safety, or caught in the no man's land where neither side can safely retrieve them. Someone should help them, you whisper to no one in particular. Can't, responds a veteran nearby. Anybody goes out there gets shot. They'll send parties under white flags at dawn maybe, if both sides agree. The thought of wounded men lying all night in the darkness is almost worse than the battle itself. Some call for water, others for their mothers. Many just moan, a sound that seems to come from everywhere and nowhere in the darkness. When your watch ends at midnight, you find no rest in sleep. Nightmares jolt you awake repeatedly. Images of men running towards you with bayonets, of Colonel Montgomery falling, of faces you don't know staring with dead eyes. Dawn comes grey and misty. The valley below the ridge is shrouded in fog, obscuring whatever movement might be happening in the Confederate lines. The field of yesterday's battle is now fully visible, a landscape of discarded equipment, shell holes and bodies. So many bodies. During the night, many of the wounded manage to crawl to one side or the other, but dozens remain, some moving weakly, others ominously still. Captain Hayes gathers your company. His face is haggard, eyes red from lack of sleep. We're being relieved, he announces. Another division is taking our position. We're to move north and then east to join a flanking movement. The news brings no celebration, just nods of acknowledgement. After yesterday, emotional responses seem muted, as if something inside has been temporarily switched off. Your regiment marches away from the ridge by mid-morning. The sounds of battle resume behind you, the fight continuing with fresh troops. You feel a strange mix of guilt and relief at leaving. The march takes you through terrain untouched by yesterday's fighting. Farmland still neat and productive. Orchards heavy with early summer fruit. The contrast with the blasted landscape of the battlefield is jarring. "Permission to fill canteens, sir?" Wilkins asks when you pass a clear stream. Captain Hayes nods. Quickly. The cool water is the most wonderful thing you've tasted in days. You drink deeply, then splash some on your face, washing away layers of sweat, gunpowder and dirt. Your reflection in the water startles you. Is that really your face? Hollowed cheeks, sunburned forehead, eyes that look somehow older than they did a week ago. The face of someone you don't fully recognize. The regiment continues its march through the afternoon, eventually joining a larger column moving toward the sound of distant battle, another fight happening somewhere ahead. By evening, you've covered nearly 15 miles and find yourselves on another ridge overlooking different Confederate positions. Camp is made hastily. No tents tonight, just sleep where you can find level ground. The usual routines of army life resume with mechanical precision. Cook fires, coffee, hardtack soaked to edible softness, cleaning rifles fouled by yesterday's firing. You sit with your company, listening to subdued conversations around the fires, men speaking of home, of before, small talk that carefully avoids mentioning yesterday or tomorrow. "You know what I miss most," Wilkins says suddenly. "Ice cream, stupid, right? With everything else, that's what I think about." "Fresh bread," offers William, still warm from the oven. Others join in. Clean sheets, coffee that doesn't taste like mud, the sound of church bells on Sunday morning. This is how soldiers cope, you realise, finding moments of normal in the midst of the insane, remembering they're still human despite what they've seen, what they've done. As darkness deepens, a messenger arrives for Captain Hayes. You watch as he reads the dispatch by firelight, his expression unchanging. Tomorrow, he tells the company officers gathered around him, we attack at dawn. The words pass